Secretary Salazar, Secretary Vilsack, and Secretary LaHood. The topic of today's hearing is the Recovery Act. 7 months ago, when President Obama took office, the country was on the brink of a financial meltdown. Credit was frozen. Home mortgages, many of them subprime, were being foreclosed at record rates. The economy was losing an average of 700,000 jobs a month. The stock market had lost nearly $10 trillion in wealth and headed downward. Congress and the Obama administration took action, bold action. The boldest came in late February when we enacted the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, an unprecedented act, but so were the circumstances. The Recovery Act has begun to bear fruit, but we still have miles to go before we can say we are at full recovery, a full economy. But we are faced no longer with the severe, critical financial conditions that we found at the beginning of this year. The country has lost 6.5 million jobs since the recession began in December 2007. 6.5 million jobs, by far the worst post-war downturn in employment. But we've now slowed down the rate of job loss. The housing market beginning to pick up. Retail sales beginning to turn up. The forecast is for the economy to grow in the third quarter. The Recovery Act has provided a tax credit for 95% of all working families. It's assisted 12 million jobless Americans with extra unemployment benefits and increased food assistance to low-income families. Already, states have drawn down more than $23 billion in additional Medicaid funds as they deal with record budget shortfalls. And the Recovery Act has already allowed tens of thousands of teachers, law enforcement officials, and firefighters to keep their jobs. The economic recession that began during the previous administration has taken its toll on the federal budget, no doubt about it, leaving the Obama administration and the Congress with a massive deficit. That's the bad news, a deficit of $1.7 trillion, $1.8 trillion this year. The good news is many of the conditions that are swelling the deficit to these unprecedented levels are non-recurring, one-time events. And if we can avoid the recurrence of these events, I think we can credibly put the budget on a downward glide path to $1 trillion next year and $525 billion in the year 2014. We're fortunate today to have three of the key officials who are charged with implementing the Recovery Act. They are, in order of when their agencies were incorporated, and I understand that's the protocol: Ken Salazar, Secretary of the Interior; Tom Vilsack, Secretary of Agriculture; and Ray LaHood, our old colleague, Secretary of Transportation. These three gentlemen need no introduction. They have years of experience working to improve the lives of Americans across the country through their various positions in business and government and politics. We have a former governor, a senator, a former senator and representative here this morning, and three cabinet secretaries, which is probably a precedent for this committee. We look forward to hearing your status report on the Recovery Act, what's working and what's not, why the lags in the results, and what do you recommend for the months ahead. We very much appreciate your taking time to join us today, but before turning to you for your testimony, let me turn to Mr.